Hi students, so today we're going to start off by reading a book called Jabari Jumps, and then afterwards we're going to go into some discussion about a book and then do some writing. So let's go ahead. Jabari Jumps by Gia Cornwall. I'm jumping off the diving board today, Jabari told his dad. Really? Said his dad. The diving board was high and maybe a little scary, but Jabari finished his swimming lessons and passed his swim test, and now he was ready to jump. I'm a great jumper, said Jabari, so I'm not scared at all. Jabari watched the other kids climb the long ladder. They walked all the way out to the end of the board, as big as tiny bugs. Then they stood on the edge. They spread their arms and bent their knees and sprang up, 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 and then they dove down, down, down. Splash! Looks easy, Jabari said, but when his dad squeezed his hand, Jabari squeezed back. Jabari stood at the bottom of the ladder. He looked up. You can go before me if you want, he told the kid behind him. I need to think about what kind of special jump I'm going to do. Jabari thought and thought. Jabari started to climb, up and up. This ladder is very tall, he thought. Are you okay? Called his dad. I'm just a little tired, said Jabari. Maybe you should climb down and take a tiny rest, said his dad. A tiny rest sounded like a good idea. When he got to the bottom, Jabari remembered something. I forgot to do my stretches, he said to his dad. Stretching is very important, said his dad. I think tomorrow might be a better day for jumping, Jabari said. They looked up at the diving board together. It's okay to feel a little scared, said his dad. Sometimes, if I feel a little scared, I take a deep breath and tell myself I am ready. And you know what? Sometimes it stops feeling scary and feels a little like a surprise. Jabari loved surprises. Jabari took a deep breath and felt it fill his body from the ends of his hair right down to the tips of his toes. Jabari looked up. He began to climb. Up and up and up and up until he got to the top. Jabari stood up straight. He walked all the way to the end of the board. His toes curled around the rough edge. Jabari looked out. As far as he could see, he felt like he was ready. I love surprises, he whispered. He took a deep breath and spread his arms and bent his knees, and then he sprang up off the board, flying. Jabari hit the water with a splash. Down, down, down he went, and then back up. Whoosh! Jabari, you did it, said his dad. I did it, said Jabari. I'm a great jumper, and you know what? What? Said his dad. Surprise double backflip is next. Okay, now that we've read the book Jabari Jumps, I'm going to ask a couple of questions. We're going to start with, what was the issue, the problem, that Jabari needed to solve? Exactly right, you guys. The issue and the problem that he needed to solve was getting up enough courage for himself to jump off the diving board. Good job, guys. Our next question that I'm going to have you talk about in your groups is, what did Jabari have to do before he went and jumped on the diving board? Make sure you have an answer because I'm going to call on someone. That's right. He had to stretch before he went and got up on the diving board. The last question that I'm going to have for now is, what did Jabari's dad, what advice did he give him about how to make sure that he stopped feeling so scared about jumping off the diving board? That's right. His dad told him that he needs to just take a deep breath and tell himself that he is. This book, Jabari Jumps, is called a narrative. And a narrative is a spoken or written story. Today, we are going to be writing narratives in Writing Workshop. I would like you to write a narrative about something fun that you did over the weekend. Or if you didn't do anything fun last weekend, you can talk about something that you're planning on doing this weekend with your family. I'm going to tell you a narrative about something that I did this weekend to give you some ideas of what things that should be included in your writing. So this last weekend, I went on a hike with my family. The first thing we had to do was decide where we wanted to go. We had two options. The first one was an easier hike, and the second one was a harder hike. The easier hike was a little bit longer, but again, flatter. And the harder hike was a little bit shorter, but it had a lot of steep inclines. My family and I ended up doing the harder hike. When we were ready to go, my mom, my dad, my sister, and I all packed up our little bags with some snacks and our water, and we left from our house. It took us about an hour and a half to make it all the way up to the top point that we wanted to, but when we got there, it was really beautiful. On our way back down, though, I fell. Thank goodness it wasn't a terrible fall, but I did get some scrapes and some scratches, and I was bleeding a little bit. I didn't know if I was going to be able to make it back down the hill. I was in a lot of pain. Thankfully, my mom poured some water on me and got me all nice and fixed up. I was able to make it back down the mountain, and when I got home, I got to get some ice on my legs and put some Band-Aids on my cuts. But overall, it was a super fun hike, even though I got hurt. Now, a couple of important things to remember when you're writing narratives is that you should include at least two events that were sequenced in the order that they happened. Like in mine, I talked about how we walked all the way up to the hill, and it was really pretty. But then on the way down, I fell. Those were two different points that happened in that order. Also to include some details about what happened. Like I talked about how I fell and where I got scraped. That was an important one. And also how long it took to walk up the mountain. Also including words like first, then, finally, or last to help give an order to the events and help move the story along. And finally, adding some sort of closure, usually in the finally we made it home, something like that, to help give your story an end point. Okay, so I'm going to give you guys about 5 minutes to brainstorm some ideas about a narrative, and then we'll regroup, and then after that, I will give you about 15 to 20 minutes to work and finish and do your narrative. If you don't finish it, that's okay. Remember, we still have time, free time after recess that you can work on that. Okay, so before I let you go off and do your narrative work, I'm going to go over a couple little things so that we can try and remember some of the things we've covered in it. So does anybody remember what the word narrative means? That's right, good job. A narrative is a story. As I said, I would give my students about 20 minutes, give or take, depending on how long it would take for a discussion about some of the different stories that my students came up with for themselves, to write their narrative. Obviously, I would be walking around and giving some pointers, some guides, and giving positive reinforcement to students who I see working really hard. Okay, awesome job, you guys, today. Before we go off to recess and I'll let you run around, I'm going to want you guys to take out a slip of paper and a pencil, and what I want you to do is write your name and then your exit slip so that you can go line up for recess is to write down what a narrative is. It can be in your own words. I would prefer it if you did use at least one or two of the vocabulary words that we had used originally, but however you want to define it, that's fine as long as you get an idea and you can show me that you understand what a narrative is. Make sure that you come and put the pieces of paper on my desk before you go line up.